Hello everyone, we're just waiting for people to filter in and then we'll start presenting. I'll start with an introduction. Hello and welcome to the IET Young Professional Committee Mersey and Western Cheshire webinar called Academia to Industry, the Challenge. Dr Mohamed Sufian, or Mo, will be the main presenter today, and he's going to talk about his experience from being a student and going into industry, and hopefully give you advice on how you can be more prepared for industry than just what you're told in university. And feel free to ask any questions you want regarding Mo's experience or things you are unsure about in the Q&A chat. Mo, I'll hand it over to you and then you can introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Thanks very much, Dashan. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone, for inviting me and organising this interesting webinar. Really want to thank the guests for attending. We have a bunch of attendance, 31 attendance, as I can see on my screen. So thank you all for attendance, and I hope in this webinar or in this talk that you can get the most of it and benefit the most of it from my personal experience and from my current experience in industry. So in this webinar, which I'm about to be sharing my screen in a minute, is I'll be talking about the challenge, so the transition between academia into industry. So I'll be sharing a lot of my experience, and I'll be sharing a lot of things that I've seen from the challenges that can be beneficial for everyone in this room. So just before I start, I just wanted to, if you can use the chat and let me know, I just want to do a quick survey. How many undergraduate students do we have in this webinar today? If you just put a number 1, just so I can just get a feel of how many people do we have here who's undergraduates. Okay, Ollie, Emma, Maja, Max, Rachel. Okay. Okay, so do we have any postgraduate students? So students who's currently doing master degree or postgraduate or PhD degree? So we have Garima, who's undergraduate as well. So Andrew, PhD, cool. So we've got a bunch. PhD, is that okay? Yeah, so we've got a bunch of undergraduate, a bunch of masters and PhD, which is really good, interesting. Do you have any apprentice? Anyone who's been into industry before? Just a quick survey. Just press number 1, that'll do. Okay. All right, let's just do it. Okay, so we've got a couple here who's been to industry before, so they'll have some sort of insight. Rachel, they'll have some sort of insight on what is going on in industry, and they must have had the real feel of the industry. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, Dashan, can you just give us a go forward? Can you see the presentation, please?
We can see it, but yeah, now you're in full screen, so it's all fine.
Cool. Right, so welcome to my presentation. So academia to industry, the challenge. So the reason I've chose this title is because I personally faced a lot of challenges when I went, when I was in my academia, doing my university. And I've spent a lot of time in university. I've done my undergraduate degree and I've done my PhD in university at Liverpool John Moores University. So the reason I called this title is because there are a lot of challenges, and I feel like a lot of people, in particular students, need to be aware of these challenges and to avoid mistakes, and to be able to understand what is the industry out there, what is it currently like, and something to learn about before you get into industry or head back into industry. So just to give you a bit of information about myself, so I graduated from Liverpool John Moores University. I have a PhD in robotics machining. So I looked at ways improving robotics, using robotics for surface finishing applications, mainly in manufacturing. So I spent about 3 years and 5 months in doing my PhD. And throughout my time in university, I was teaching. So when I was doing my PhD, I was teaching foundation level students, those students who wanted to go into university, and basically getting prepared to go into university and doing core modules like maths, physics, and etc. And also I've done my MEng in mechanical engineering. So that was again in Liverpool John Moores University, and the duration of that was 4 years. So this is just a bit of background about my academic experience. So in terms of my industrial experience, I've worked in a couple of companies. Started my career with a company called LJ Creates. So they do educational systems for university, colleges, and schools. And I used to be a training and installation engineer. So what we used to do is we used to install systems like hydraulic systems, robotic systems, pneumatic systems, and etc. And also I worked in Euro garages, is a retail industry. So I was a supervisor. I worked with ChargePoint Technology. It's a Liverpool-based company that is involved in the pharmaceutical industry. And I was a project engineer. And then after my PhD, I was a project consultant. So doing more of consultancy with a company called Alton. So it's a consultancy type of business. And I was specialized within the robotics field. And hopefully soon I'll be moving into sales and more of robotic applications. So this is a bit of a background about myself and what I've been doing. So let's get into the point straight away. So in today's presentation, I wanted to construct a roadmap. I wanted it to be, hopefully to be as easy as possible for everyone in this room to understand, and also to be aware of the challenges and the challenges that they may face and the challenges that I've personally faced. And this roadmap is literally 4 challenges. So first, you start at university, you do your undergraduate degree, you do your postgraduate degree, or whatever course that you're doing in university. The first challenge is I call it stage 1 challenge, which is the transition stage challenge. So this is how to make your first step into industry. Now going into the next challenge is your expectations. So this is the expectations of yourself and expectations of what you're going to be expecting from industry. And you realize that your expectations sometimes cannot be the right expectations. So there is some need for you to pick up new skills. And this is what we're going to be going through throughout this presentation. The challenge number 3, which I called it stage 3, which is realizations. So you realize that whatever you've done or whatever you've come through in academia, in university in particular, it's kind of different from the real industry, which is the real work. So I called it realizations, which is a shift in work culture. So number 4 is the challenge number 4. Challenge number 4, which I called it the reality stage. So reality is kind of different, and it's all about adapting yourself into industry. So 4 main challenges that we're going to go through today, and hopefully this will reflect or will give you some sort of an insight of what is the difference when you come from academia and you go into industry. So the first part is the university. Obviously, you're still in university and you are completing your modules. You've got your assignments, your projects, your final year projects. If you're doing your PhD, you've got your PhD project. You have to come up with a novelty and etc. So you're busy throughout your university, is literally by trying to pass university. And throughout your time in university, you get busy with a lot of stuff. Some of you may have part-time work. Some of you are fully focused on university itself. So with all your time in university and as many years that you spend in university, you are worried about just getting it over and done with. So the time you go into industry is the time you find the work, which is job hunting. So this is the time that you face the first challenge. So you're fast forwarding the time from university, you are at your last year of university. So if you're doing an MEng or if you're doing a BEng, if you're in your last year of university going into industry, and this is the time that you personally I faced the most challenge, and this is the time that you'll face your first ever challenge when you go into industry. So it's the job hunting, so it's finding work. So challenge number one is the transition stage. So the transition stage is a key challenge. Now at this stage, all you need or all you want or all you're thinking about is just finding a job. So what most students do, what I've personally done as well, is I was literally just sending out applications in the field of study. So in my field of study was mechanical engineering. So you might have a different field of study. So you just want to send out an application. You just want to find a job. Your friends in university may or may not already have a job. So you're competing sometimes with a friend who's going to find the first job and etc. Sometimes you want to say, lay back a little bit. You want to relax after university. And sometimes you just want to go out, depending on your situation, you just want to go and find the work. So this transition stage is kind of a little bit, sometimes it can be a little bit messy because of the time that you're going to spend after university. And sometimes you just want to go out there and just start working really. So sometimes you're not fully aware of the markets. You're sending out applications like mad, and you're just not aware of what is the market in your field. And when I say you're not aware of the market, is the fact that you're probably not applying for the right role. You just think they're looking for a mechanical engineer, and you say, okay, I'm a mechanical engineer, I've just graduated from university, and you just send an application. So you're not aware of the insights of what the employer is actually looking for. Sometimes it can be tricky, and because obviously as a student you just want to find a job, and or as a student who's going to graduate, you just want to find a job, so you don't tend to read a lot, or you don't tend to go into details of what they're looking for. And sometimes you're not aware of the specific details of the job role. And also, which is one of the key factors, is you don't sometimes understand the skills and capabilities fully. So as a student, like I said, you just want to find a job. And when you self-reflect on yourself, you just forget to self-reflect on your skills and capabilities and what you're going to bring into the market. So this is the first challenge. And the reason you're doing that is because sometimes you could be desperate for finding a job and you just want to be industry. And the one advice I would give you is you should not ever do that. The reality is you are making it hard for the employer to say yes. So in this transition stage, this is a key factor when you come from university into industry, is you need to be able to self-reflect on yourself and see what you can be and how you're going to add value into the market. So you just don't make it hard for the employer to say yes for you. So what is my proposed solutions? So getting through this challenge requires a lot of awareness. So the first thing that you don't want to be doing is do not send out generic applications in your field of study. So when I say, what I mean by generic applications is just don't be submitting CVs or cover letters that are generic. Always reflect on what skills and attributes or qualities that you're going to bring into the application or the job details in particular. Now, This may sound hard, or for you, this may sound easy, but trust me, from what I've seen myself, is when I used to send generic applications, especially when I finished my university, whether it was my MEng time or the PhD, when I finished my PhD time, I've done the same mistake throughout my MEng and the PhD. And it was just the fact that I just wanted to find a job. And when I was sending a lot of generic applications, I never used to get a lot of good responses. So I had to step back and think what skills and attributes I can bring. So I had to reflect on what is my key skills and qualities. So, for example, from a robotics point of view, which is the field I study, the field that I work in. So I've spent 3 years in my PhD looking at what I've done throughout my PhD, and I've done a lot of research, and there was a lot of practical work, and there was a lot of research research for solutions and bringing solutions into the table and etc. So I've never actually before. The reason I found it hard is because I never actually self-reflected on my skills and my qualities and what is it that I can bring. Now, with employers out there, normally they look at generic skills and qualities that you can bring into the table, and they don't look into details of what skills and attributes you propose to them, because in the end of the day, you will be able to integrate with the team, and you'll be able to integrate with the company, and you pick up skills along the way. But you need to be able to self-reflect to what is it that you're going to bring, whether you are an undergraduate student, whether you are a postgraduate student. So the best way to look at this is you need to be able to see what you've done into university. An example will be if you do a design, so you need to be able to say in your CV or in your cover letter or to your employer that you've done this X amount of project and you've proposed your design skills with this X amount of project. You can't just be saying I've done this project that required design for this particular solution. So you need to be able to go into details on what sort of strategies that you've proposed to perform that design or to come up with the solution that you need. So this is just a quick example on how you can reflect on your skills and qualities in this particular, for example, niche, which is the design. And also you need to be thinking about the value that you can bring into the market. Now, you need to be aware that there's a lot of competitiveness in the market in terms of for you finding a job, or in terms of people wanting this role that are already very experienced in the role. Now, that doesn't make you different for them. The only difference is they may have more experience, they may have had more time spending on this particular project or similar projects within that field, but it does not make you different from them, because the skills and qualities is still the same. It's all about how you can present yourself and how you can present to your employer these type of skills that you can bring into the table. So writing your CV and reflecting your CV on your skills is a key factor, especially in the first transition stage, which is the first challenge. Now, you just don't want to show to your employer that you're desperate, because this makes you look needy. So this is very important, because from my personal experience, because I wanted a job, I just wanted to send out just CVs out there, just wanted to get attention. So I think I looked desperate, and this is why I had a lot of no's. But you don't want to be that desperate. If you self-reflect on your skills and qualities, then you won't look desperate. So this won't make you look needy. So the proposed solution, which is a key factor here, is do not show that you're desperate, even though you're desperate from inside of you. If you want to find a job, but you don't show that, it just makes you look more needy, and they just tend to get away from you. So challenge number 2, which is the expectations. So on this one, that was a tough one, because when I found a job, that was with Alton UK, and I was expecting to be the guru in my field. Now, because I've done my PhD and I spent a lot of time doing my PhD and researching my project and etc., they wanted someone who is more of a specialist in that field. So I was expecting to be the guy who had the knowledge in this particular field, which is my robotics field. And because I had the ability to research and bring solutions, because I worked on my project and bringing solutions for my project, I was thinking that I was the guru behind it, and I was the one who's going to solve problems, and I was the one who's going to bring the ideas and maybe innovate in terms of bringing solutions to the table. So that was my personal expectations, but in reality, these were not happening. So these attributes are not enough for, they're not enough with the degree that you have. Now, it's always good that you have the knowledge. It's always good that you have the ability to research. It's always good that you have the ability to solve problems, and it's always good to have to bring new ideas and innovate. But don't have your expectations high in terms of what you can bring, because there's always rooms to learn throughout the time when you go into industry. Now, I consider this as a challenge, because when you find a job, you're excited, you want to go and work, and then especially if you are coming from a PhD point of view, or a PhD environment, or you're coming from an undergraduate environment, sometimes you could be the most hard worker in your class, and you think you are, I wouldn't say you think, but you may have the best chances to find a job, or you may have the best chances to solve problems and etc. Sometimes you have this over expectations, but just self-reflect again, and it's not all about the expectations, because expectations can be wrong sometimes. But what I will say is that these attributes are good to have, but they're not enough with the degree that you have, because there's always rooms to learn. So how do you tackle this expectations? So when you come into this second challenge, which is the expectations, which is that the fact that you need to be picking up new skills. So you hold a degree, you have a lot of knowledge, which is amazing, and you know all about the industry, the theoretical part of the industry, since you're still in university. So that's really good, and that's a check in the list. So you get a tick for that. Now, why do you need more skills when you go into university? Now, the reason you need more skills is because you have to be adaptable. Now, there is a lot of changes in industry. So you come from a academic point of view, you have the knowledge, you know, you've got multiple skills, and you know how this works, you know how this machines work, you know how this particular design is constructed. But an industry is totally different from academia, because it is a fast-paced environment. So you need to be able to get new skills to make you more adaptable, to make you more resourceful, and to be able, so because the market is very competitive, so you need to be able to be flexible with that competitiveness in the market. So the reason you need to be adaptable is because that will help you grow your mindset and knowledge. And the reason you need to be resourceful is because you need to be able to bring ideas relevant to this project that you're going to be working on when you go into industry, depending the type of industry. And the reason you have to understand that you're going to be in a competitive market, because things are changing in industry very fast, especially now with the technology and everything is changing. So things are changing day by day, week by week. Whereas in academia or university, you're still in an environment that is changing, but not as fast as it is in industry, because with industry, there's money involved. There's a lot of things that is involved that will make you ahead of the market, or make your company ahead of the market. So you need to be aware of the competitiveness of the market. So there is three main key skills that I wanted to come across today. One is the communication skills. Now, these are soft skills. Now, a lot of people talk about communication skills. A lot of people talk about how important to be able to communicate. Now, I'm sure everyone in this room knows how important the communication skills is. But if you dig more into communication skills, you'll notice there is a lot of us, including me, including everyone out there, they will have some lack of communication skills. And the reason I wanted to mention this in our webinar today, or in the presentation today, is because I wanted to emphasize that this is a key skill. Because when I was self-reflecting myself, and I've come into conclusions that there are some communication skills that I needed to develop for myself, and I've currently developed it and always currently developing in industry, and that's what makes you valuable in the market. Now, some of these communication skills are active listening skills, so being able to listen and being able to follow instructions in the right and effective way. And the writing skills, you're looking at more of report writing, you're looking at more analytical type of report, you're more looking at executive type of report writing. So you're looking at ways to present or reflect whatever that you are talking about in a piece of paper. So from an undergraduate perspective, sometimes you do a lot of copy and pasting and etc. But you need to be able to develop these skills whilst you're a student, because that what makes you different when you want to go into industry as a student, because these writing skills are really, really important, because everything is documented out there. Presentation skills is the fact that how you can engage people, is the fact that how you can be able to explain what you want to explain from a technical point of view or from a non-technical point of view. From my personal experience, because I deal with robotics, it's a technical field, so it's really important for us to be able to present information in a non-technical way. So because you get a lot of customers who are wanting to integrate or use robotics, but they don't understand the technical sides of it. So you need to be able to explain the non-technical terms in an easy and effective way. Now, this is really important. Non-verbal communication skills, this is something like how you can understand the right or wrong, for example, without someone telling you this is wrong or this is right. Empathy and patience, you come across a lot of people who you have to show your empathy to, and you have to be patient with, because not all people are the same. So with these communication skills, the reason I wanted to come across them is because they are really, really important when it comes to industry. And this, obviously you can develop it whilst you're in industry, but to be able to be aware of it before you go into industry, that could be a key solution for you to avoid the challenges. The best example I can think of is interview skills, for example. So when you go into interview, you have to be able to explain the projects that you've come across, and to be able to explain them in a way that your employer can understand them. And you can't just be going into details of something that may not be interesting to the employer. So you need to be able to balance what you're going to be talking about. And this is a critical factor from my personal opinion. The other solution is the problem solving skill. So problem solving is really, really important, because coming from an engineering environment, it's all about problem solving. So usually this involves considering the pros and the cons of each solution and finding the path with the least risks. Now, with problem solving, there is a lot of ways to consider or to look at problem solving skills. So some of them can be brainstorming skills, some of them can be critical thinking skills, and some of them can be research skills. So if I was to be going back when I was in university, I'd be looking at these skills as a major skills that I need to be working on, because with brainstorming skills, you're looking at techniques and finding conclusions and finding solutions for a critical problem. Whereas with critical thinking skills, you are more like building a puzzle to come up with a solution. With research skills, you won't be able to come up with the brainstorming ideas or any sort of critical thinking ideas without any research skills. So these three key skills are really important for you to consider, or for you to develop whilst you're in university before you go into industry. Because if you can show that you've got these skills, these problem solving skills, then you are in a good way of finding the ideal position in industry, and you are in a good position where you can thrive and present your value to your employer. So like I said, if I was to be going back to university, I'd be looking at these critical skills, these problem solving skills, and I would be looking at developing these skills, because that's what's going to give you the edge in the market when you go out there. Now, the final one, which is the third one here, is teamwork. Now, I know teamwork, again, is more like communication skills. Everyone talks about teamwork, everyone talks about communication skills, but it's really, really important for people who are doing postgraduate to consider teamwork skills as a skill that they need to be working on, because sometimes you can lack, especially if you are a PhD or postgraduate or you're doing your masters. Sometimes you can lack of teamwork skills. I personally had it because it was more self-orientated. If you're doing a PhD, it was more self-orientated, and you are fully focused on your project, so you lack of the teamwork skills. So in industry, individuals, you cannot compete or you cannot complete any projects without teamwork. So instead, obviously, you always need to be working with a team to be able to complete a project in general. So I mentioned here teamwork in this slide is because I want to emphasize how important it is, not just for postgraduate students, for everyone in general, in real life in general, and also for undergraduate students in particular, because whilst you're doing your undergraduate course, you do a lot of projects that are involved with teams. So if I was an undergraduate, I would be utilizing my time and understanding how I can work with a team, and how I can be patient, how I can be empathetic, and how I can bring results as a team. Sometimes if you're obviously in a project and you have people who are lazy, I've come across it when I was an undergraduate, just use these skills to develop yourself instead of just complaining about these skills. So the aim for me to give you these skills, to make you aware that these skills are really important, because in university you tend to, like I said, to forget what is the surroundings. But if you deep to the core of the solutions comes from these skills. And if you're able to develop these skills, then you make life easier for you when you finish your university. So I wanted to share with you some information here that I've come across from a source called Census Y Survey. So they've done a survey of over 1,000 businesses in 2020, and it's basically, this survey explains what is it the way do they need in the workplace, what skills do they need in the workplace. So if you look at this chart here, this is your university degree. So it only contributes to 11%. Now, I'm not saying your degree is not important. I don't want you guys to get me wrong. Now, I'm saying that the degree is really important, but the skills are actually more important. So if you have a degree on top of these skills, you are in a good shape, you are in a good form, and you are going to be in the right environment. So if you look at these skills here, starting from the problem solving skills, teamwork, digital literacy, so how you use the digital tools to be able to present whatever you want to present, for example, presentations, Word documents, and etc. You're looking at critical thinking skills, you're looking at communication skills, organization and planning, you're looking at previous experience. Believe it or not, previous experience is good, but is not actually that important, because you can always learn throughout your time. Now, as a student, you're coming from academia into industry. You'll notice here your university degree is a good factor. Your previous experience is actually a good factor as well. But the majority of the percentages here are all from your skills. So ask yourself after this presentation, what are the skills that you can learn, or what are the skills that you've developed in university, and how can you self-reflect them skills to your employer when you go out there and obviously do your interview and get through the industry. So what I'm trying to say here is, it's all about the skills that you come across. It's all about how you can develop these skills whilst you're in university and be able to get into industry. So it's a really good chart to self-reflect on. Will give you an idea on what is your current situation. You may have a good percentage here and a low percentage in some aspects or some places. Then you can always develop these places. Okay, so challenge 3 is expectations. So challenge 3 is realizations. So realizations is more of the shift in work culture in terms of productivity. So this is a good one for me personally, is because when I went into industry and started working, there was a shift in work culture. So the workshop culture was very much different, because in academia, the basic focus is on ideas rather than products, whereas in industry, it is mainly focused on products, because obviously with industry is very competitive. They want to sell more, they want to provide solutions faster, the market is competitive, and etc. In university, it's more about the idea and how to develop the idea and how to get your idea across. If you are doing a PhD, it's all about the time that you're going to spend throughout your time in PhD, and it's all about the novelty. So it takes a lot of time, or a long time, for you to be able to develop this idea. So the shift in work culture in terms of productivity in industry is the project timelines. So if you will notice, if you are an undergraduate student, you have a full year to do your final year project. If you are a PhD student or a master's degree student, you may have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to finish your final year project. In industry, you're looking at several weeks. sometimes you're looking at several months, and you're not looking at a year project unless it's a big project. Obviously, then you'll be looking at these projects will be breaking down into KPIs, and then obviously you need to be able to submit sections of this project throughout the year to be able to complete it. Whereas whereas academia is more laid back. So what I'm trying to get across is it is a fast-paced environment, and for you to be able to understand how industry works is because there is a lot of money generated within industry. So that's why it's a fast-paced environment. And also it's a result driven. So industry works on deliverables, whilst academia works on freedom of experiment. So the best example is in academia, you do a experiment, it doesn't work, you do it again, it doesn't work, you don't get the result that you need, you do it again and again. Whereas in industry, you probably have 2 times maximum to do an experiment, and you should be able to get results throughout this experiment because you have a mentors and you have obviously people who will be supporting you, who's been there before, and they tell you what you need to do. So this is the real difference from what I've personally faced. And for you as a student, or for you as someone who is still in academia who wants to go into industry, you need to be able to know how you can work in this fast-paced environment. You need to be able to know how to adapt and be flexible in this sort of fast-paced environment. So it's really important for you as a student, it's really important for you who wants to go into industry to understand and realize that it is a fast-paced environment and you need to be on top of your A game, because that's what employers always look for. So challenge number 4, reality. So adapting into industry. Now, this is a key one because when you go into industry, you need to be able to adapt to the current situation that is in industry. Now, one thing that you need to be able to adapt and need to be able to be aware of is the commercial awareness. So what I mean by that is the fact that you need to be able, you need to know how money is generated. That's literally what it is. You need to be aware how the business works in the company or in the industry that you are working on. You need to be able to understand the implications. You need to be able to understand how they make money, how do they generate leads, and what affects the leads or what brings the leads, and etc. And you need to be able to understand the customers you need to be able to understand from a customer perspective and from a competitor perspective, because as a student, we're not aware of the commercial awareness. If you are working on a PhD or master degree project or your undergraduate project, you are working on a project that is part of a solution or part of multiple projects. And for you to be able to self-reflect that when you go back to the employer or when you go to industry, you need to be able to have that sort of commercial awareness so that your employer understands that the project that you worked on has got that commercial activity behind it. So unfortunately in universities, we don't get that sort of, I personally didn't get that sort of commercial awareness side of it, but it's really important for you to be able to be aware of that commercial awareness of the project that you're working on, whether you're in university or postgraduate level or whichever level, because that does really help you when you go into industry, and will also help you to understand what is the existing projects out there and how you can provide that improvement depending on what sort of solutions or what sort of speciality that you can bring into the market. The other thing is the management and leadership. So management and leadership sounds like a big word, but in reality, every day you are managing yourself. Every day you are managing your fellow friends. Every day you are managing things around you. You're organizing things around you. You're doing a lot around you, and you are a leadership. You are a leader yourself. If you take your own decisions, you are a leader of yourself. So management and leadership are both they're both integrated together. But in industry, you need to be able to show that you can manage. You need to be able to show that you can lead projects. You can lead people. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be competitive, or it doesn't mean that you're going to take over your manager's role or your lead role or whichever role that is currently in your environment, but that you need to be able to show that you can take responsibility. And for you to be able to show that you can take responsibility is you need to reflect, and you need to reflect that you've got these core skills, which is the management and leadership skills. So you need to be able to communicate. Now, this goes back to the communication skills that I mentioned before. You need to be able to show some sort of focus on multiple projects and be able to juggle between projects. And you need to be able to take initiative and manage a small team. You need to have a vision. You need to have a clear goal and how you can reach the goal by managing your time and organizing your time. So these two key ways of adapting into industry, which is under the challenge 4, is the reality of the industry. So the reality is you need to have a commercial awareness. The reality is you need to have a management and leadership, some sort of core skills. And for you to be able to develop these skills, university is a very good place for you to develop these skills, because the university offers a infrastructure, and if you can utilize this infrastructure for yourself, then that's a really a good way of utilizing your skills. And if obviously you can perform or practice these skills on a part-time job that you do or on your daily activities, then that's an ace. And for you to go from academia into industry and demonstrating these sort of skills is a very, very effective and good way for you to be to stand out in terms of finding yourself a position out there. So the reality is you have to do things beyond your abilities. You will be presented with challenges outside your comfort zone. You need to be expected, you'll be expected to work on projects that is outside of your expertise. Now, this where flexibility and adaptability comes in. You'll need to work with multiple teams to share your observations and tasks, and obviously agreeing to roles and responsibilities. You need to be, you will have a good commercial awareness once you're industry, but it's always the first stage. If you have this commercial awareness on your first stage, then this is something that's really good for you to be able to have on the side. You'll be presented obviously with leadership roles depending on your experience in the company or in the industry, and most importantly, it's very enjoyable. So to go from academia to industry is very enjoyable, and you are in high demand. So what is the considerations? So what you want from your career depends on your motivations and what is most important for you. So let me give you a key tips if you want to go down into the industrial path. So one, you need to understand the type of employer. So whatever course or whatever degree that you come from, you need to be able to understand who are you going to apply for. So don't make it generic. Always remember, always tend to look at what is it in particular that they look for, and always self-reflect on yourself and present what you self-reflected into for that particular employer. Always have a good commercial awareness. So if you come from a mechanical background, electrical, robotics, I don't know, whatever background that you come from, you need to have that commercial awareness. So read a lot of articles, be aware of the market, understand what is the current trend, and there's always multiple ways you can do that. And attending webinars like this is always a good one, because sometimes you can always see what is the current trend out there, what is the new projects out there, and this will give you a very good experience on what you need to be able to be aware of before you go into industry. Also, a key one here is develop as much skills as you can whilst you're spending your time in university, and don't be narrow focused and over specialized. Now, when I say over specialized, sometimes with PhD or master students, you can be dragged into a project and you are very much focused on that project, which makes you a specialist. But don't be over specialized, because industry, they're not looking for over specialized people. They're looking for people who can utilize their specialty into bringing solutions of what they currently have. So I wanted to share this quick data, and how important is it for industry to recruit graduates. So when I say graduate, it doesn't have to be undergraduates, it can be all sorts of graduates. So you are very preferred in terms of they want you or not. So this is based on multiple industries from a source, the CIHE source. So it's a survey question for industry. So we're looking at Atkins, Rolls-Royce, BAE Systems, HSBC. Everyone has said they prefer to have graduate students. Now, why do they prefer to have graduate students? Because obviously graduate students are still fresh. Graduate students still have the knowledge and they have the abilities to be able to be flexible and adaptable. So for you to be able to be aware of that beforehand and develop all these skills beforehand, and then you go into industry, you are in a very, very good position. So you are also essential. Now in this one here is unimportant. This is based on if they are looking, depends on the role. So if they're looking for an experienced type of people, then obviously a graduate won't be important for them. So this is where you are at the moment. So you're in a good stage of going into industry and how demandable you are. So finally, my advice to you is utilize your skills gained in university and try and master them. So examples are soft skills, soft communication skills, problem solving, commercial awareness, management, leadership skills. So practice these skills as much as you can. If you do a part-time work, practice these skills, because this is what makes you unique in the market. Second one is networking to find opportunities. Now, for you to get into industry is all about networking and knowing the right people and understanding what role that you're going to be in. And if you network, you will understand how you can fit into a particular role. So by finding networking opportunities, for example, coming into the IET events, you're looking at ways of creating relationships. You're looking at exhibitions. You know, when I mentioned before about understanding the trend in the market and finding ways of what is the current technology, what is the existing technology, and etc., and how and what is the latest news about the technology. You're looking at exhibitions is a good way. Online webinars, if you like a company or if you like a certain organization, you always want to attend their webinars, or it doesn't have to be online, it can be also physical. It'll give you a really good insight of what is in the market. And most importantly, get active and build a strong relationship. So this is it from me for the presentation. I hope this can give you a really good insight on ways and how to bridge a gap between academia and industry, and if you want to go into industry, obviously. And yeah, just self-reflect all the time, and don't be doing the same mistakes that we're doing. Thanks very much. And if you have any questions, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. So stop share, and back to you, Darshan.
Yeah, so we've not really had any questions yet. Someone's mentioned that they joined industry after 10 years of academia research. They've done a post-PhD, postdoc, been a scientist and a professor. It was an adjustment for so in their area and company. Previous experience outside of the company doesn't as much in promotions and new positions, they said. What I'll say regarding those who want to ask questions, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat. If you use the Q&A, only the panelists will see it. If you use the chat, everyone will see it. So Mo, we've had one in the chat. If you want to answer regarding certificates and short courses that you'd recommend.
Yeah. So is it? Yeah. So that is from Robo. So after completing BEng, is there any certifications and short courses would you recommend? Right, this depends on your area of expertise. So depending on the course that you come from or degree that you come from, you would definitely want to look at what sort of certificates that you can enhance your abilities for. Now, it's really good to be able to have any certifications. For example, I have done the Prince 2 for management, and that was really good for my particular expertise and my particular degree. So you need to be looking at what course are you doing, and based on that, you can do the certificates that you want. Now, something that you can also be aware of is industry. Sometimes they give you the financials for that, so it's part of the personal development. So if you're in the right company, then you can always, if you achieve your KPIs with your manager, they can always pay for whichever courses that you want to do. But if you get a chance to do it beforehand, that will show that you are very well developed and you are ready to get there. So if you have time, me personally, if I have over COVID, I've done my Prince 2 myself, my personal funding. So yeah, if I was you, if you have time, then go for it, do it yourself. If not, you can always wait. If you get into industry, they will pay for it.
Another question we've had is, did you find it frustrating not having opportunity to work on projects for longer in industry? I felt you could solve certain problems if you had a couple of more weeks, but you couldn't because of industry pressures.
Yeah, a really good question. Yeah, you get that a lot, but obviously there's a lot of factors that is considered on these projects. Sometimes can be from a client's perspective, sometimes it can be from the company's perspective. So you don't have the chance. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you can face difficulties in terms of the pace itself and completing the project. So trust me, you'll get really busy and you will be sometimes behind on the projects. But if you tend to finish and complete a project, then that'll be good. You can always obviously give it to the second person in command, which is your manager sometimes, or if you're a manager yourself, you sign it off and etc. But it's very rare that you complete it 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, to be fair. But if you do that, then that's an ace. Depending on the industry you're in. I'm talking from my experience is highly technical. So from a robotics and mechanical engineering point of view, so it's very technical. So it normally takes a long time to finish a project.
The next question has been asked about if there's a recording. I'll answer that. Yes, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the local network YouTube channel. I will put a link in the chat for everyone to access. It may take a few days for this recording to be available, but it should be in roughly a week's time, if not slightly earlier. The next question is, how did you find the difference in work-life balance between academia and industry?
Work-life balance. That's a really good term. They use it a lot in industry. Now, industry, they help you a lot with that. The best example I can think of, if you ever get stressed, you can always come into discussions. They give you time off and and just take time off to relax. Me personally, the best way I do it is I normally like to take initiative myself. So I tend to keep up to date with my sports and eating healthy and etc. So it depends how you want to look at work-life balance. So industry, they do help you a lot in terms of work-life balance. Me personally, I tend to take initiative myself and look after what I do in the daily activities.
So the next question is, any advice for doing a year in industry or sandwich year? What to expect, what to try and offer, what to put on a CV? So I think the question is mainly to do with your opinion on a year in industry and how people can use it.
Yeah, if you get a chance to get a sandwich year, then it's really, really good. Now, depending on yourself and how motivated are you to carry on with your studies, sometimes you can get overwhelmed in the industry and you like the pay and they offer you a position. To do a sandwich year is really important. It's really good. It's not as essential from my personal experience, but it is good for you to have the real skills and to understand how industry works, and to be able to understand the inside aspects of the industry itself. So I would definitely recommend, or I would advise anyone, if you get a chance to do a sandwich year, yes, go for it. But if you can't, it's not a big deal, because you can always bring yourself to the market after you finish your studies, depending how you present yourself and depending on how you can self-reflect your qualities and skills and what you want to bring into the market. So you just got to be aware on how to be able to present yourself if you don't have much experience. But what I would recommend for those who don't go for sandwich year, if you get a chance to work part-time, regardless whatever work that you come across, then I would definitely recommend that, because that will develop your core skills. And if you can develop your core skills within your university, then there's always something for your CV to show that you've done something and you kept active on your free times. And this is what they look for. They look for people who are active and the people who can actually bring something. They don't have to be perfect, but you can actually bring something into the market by being active and getting your core skills on the roll, I would say.
The next question is, having a BSc honours in computing and a master's in telecoms, but with no work experience, how do I get into the working market? So what, do you have any advice for that question?
The first advice I'd give you is work experience. For a student, work experience is not something that everyone is expecting, from what I've seen myself. It just depends on the type of company that you apply for. Sometimes they don't look for students. Sometimes they don't mind the student. Now, if they don't mind the student, then the best way is how you going to present yourself to them. So always be as honest as always have to be honest and just show that you are a student, you have the capabilities of performing the computing duties. I believe there's a lot of, for example, coding and etc. So you need to be able to show that, and also you need to be able to tell them and to show that you have interest in that field, and not just interest, and also you need to show them that you've got the desire and the passion about the field. Now, they understand you are a student and that you are just a graduate and you don't have much experience. But if you can show the desire and the passion, then they will take you for sure, because they know they can teach you, and they know you can bring something to them. So you're more like, you are worth of the investment. I hope that does make sense. So what I'm trying to say is experience is good, but for those who don't have experience is nothing to worry about, because I personally didn't do a sandwich year, and because I kept active when I was doing my part-time work and etc., that what helped me a lot. But don't worry if you don't have experience. Just make sure you know what you talk about when you get into the employer, and be able to do your research before you go and speak to them.
The next question I've got is, will the slides also be accessible? They won't, it'll just be the video. It's up to Mo. If Mo wants to send me the slides, I can send them out to anyone who emails me.
Yeah, I'm happy to send the slides, no problem.
Yeah. I put my email address in the chat earlier about CPD certificates. So if you want anything regarding the event, just email me with the email in the chat. The next question is there sufficient opportunity in the industries from persons from academia? I think you've slightly covered, well, you did cover that really, as in there was a chart before saying 40% of companies preferred graduates. So yes, there is to that.
100%, yep.
Looking back from your own experience, do you prefer to work in industry or academia?
That's a really good question. So depending on what type of motivations you have, really. Now for myself, I'm a very active person. I would rather be in industry because I like to be more involved with industry. Depending on what type of person you are, if you are more into a research type of person, you like coming up with ideas and you like to present them into conferences and etc. It just depends what type of person, and this is why it's really important to self-reflect on your skills and abilities. Like I said, for yourself, if you are if you're doing a PhD or masters or etc. and you want to carry on with academia, then this is totally fine. It's good for yourself. The most important thing here is look at yourself and see what is it that you can bring, whether you're in academia or in industry. So it just depends on the person itself. It's a very broad question, but you'll have to figure out yourself, unfortunately.
So there's one last question, and then unless we get any more, that one or two are coming in, so we'll carry on. But there's somebody who said in the chat about they've got experience and they're coming to the UK to do a BEng to sort of get a new qualification. Is there anything you would recommend or advise to them, or is it not something you're able to answer?
The best advice I can give, David has just mentioned on a chat, the knowledge transfer partnership are great opportunities. Now, I know someone who's done the KTP, which is the knowledge transfer partnership. This is a good opportunity for students to be able to be involved in an industry project as well as a research project. And I know this person has become he's involved in the industry 4.0, so smart factories and etc. So this is a good way for him to be able to look into. That's one thing, and also the rest as well. The best advice I can give is, if you have experience outside the country, you want to bring it into here. That doesn't make you different from the ones who's in this who's in the country to bring that experience. It just depends how you communicate and how you present your experience to your employer and how you show your abilities and what value you bring, because it's all about value. It's not about where is your experience on where your experience comes from. It's about what you can add and what contribution you can bring. This is the best answer I can give.
Yeah. So the next question is, are there different experiences on working at big or small companies?
Okay, so I don't know how to answer this question because I personally didn't work with a very, very big company, for example, like Rolls-Royce and stuff like that. I worked with the more of medium-sized companies, but I don't know. I believe with medium size or small to medium sized companies, there's a huge opportunity for you to grow, and you have to learn fast, and you tend to develop your skills faster. With big, no, don't quote me on that. I might be wrong because obviously I didn't work with a big company just yet. With big companies, maybe you just may take a bit more time for you to progress, and because obviously there's more experienced people within your team that may progress before you. But like I said, don't quote me on that. I personally didn't experience it. I might be experiencing it in January because I might be moving to Jaguar Land Rover. So if you ask me this question in the future, then I'll be able to answer this.
All right, last question, unless we get any last minute ones. If given a second chance, would you still do a PhD before going into industry? Is it important?
Really good question. Okay, Alex. Okay, so if I was to be given a second chance to do a PhD, if it was if the PhD, now depending on my situation or depending on the existing situation, if it was a pure academic PhD, then I wouldn't be doing it. If because I didn't want to go into the academia or carry on with the academia at this moment of time in my life. But if it was an industrial type of PhD, so industrial type of project, then yes, I would go back and do it, because this will give me more access to industry and more ways to solve problems and bring solutions from industry. So depending how you look at it. Now the key point here, which was a mistake from myself, which obviously I would like to advise, is if you want to be doing a PhD, then you would want to see where you see yourself in the next 3 years, 5 years, and etc. Because a PhD is academic, but there's people who do PhD that is involved with industry. So if you want to go into industry, you do a PhD that is involved in industry, then that's an ace. If you are doing a PhD and you want to be involved in industry that is purely academic, then you need to be thinking twice, or you need to find ways on how you can bring that into industry, or what solutions you can bring. It just depends how you're going to look at it. With PhD, it can be difficult, but always just look at yourself and ask yourself, where do you want to be in the next 3-5 years? Because you're going to be spending a good bunch of years in your PhD.
Yeah, there hasn't been any more questions, and it's been just over an hour. So I think now is a good time to end. I'd like to thank you, Mo, for presenting, and thank you everyone for attending. I'll repeat it for the last time. If anyone has any more questions or needs information, just email me and I will email you back, or I will ask Mo to email you, depending on what it is. And thank you for attending. I'm going to end it all here.